Hello and welcome back to the stories that brought you here. It's the podcast dedicated to the stories of the people from Pender Island, British Columbia. Once again, I'm your host, Chris Wakaluk, and I'll be sitting down in one-on-one, hour-longish conversations with current Pender Island residents to hear the stories that brought them to this creative little island we live on, and to also hear the stories that brought them to the point that they're at in their lives right now. Today, I will be speaking with Lauren Mann. Now, if you know Lauren, like I know Lauren, then you're going to know her as that musician that moved to the island a few years ago, and you've seen playing in various capacities and venues and circumstances through the island over the years. Well, we're going to get to hear Lauren talk about that, along with a heck of a lot more about music. It's going to be great. Lauren's going to go in depth into talking about how she first became involved in music when she was younger, and then eventually made the transition from being an amateur to a professional musician. She'll give an in-depth look as to what touring through North America was like for her for a number of years with her band. She'll talk about her work on the island with Ptarmigan Arts. And she'll also describe what it was like to pet a baby alligator. Yeah, I know, weird. All that and more in a pretty amazing interview that I got to do with Lauren. And so happy she said yes to doing this. And I think Lauren's just great. She's one of my favorite people to talk to on the island. And I think that you will really get a lot out of hearing Lauren describe in detail a bit of what her life was like before she moved here and what it's been like since she's moved here. So have a good time listening to this one. We'll see you guys on the other side. And without further ado, here's my interview with Lauren Mann. Ready to start?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right. Welcome to the podcast, Lauren.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here.
I'm super happy that you're here. We just had a good hour-long chat with Geneva upstairs.
Yeah, that was really nice.
It was.
Yeah, good catch up and yeah, delving into some good topics already, like pre-podcast topics. So that's fun.
Unfortunately, people will not be able to hear that. But anyway, we're here. I always like to mention what the weather is like and when we're at for some reason. But it was a gorgeous late October day today.
Yeah, so beautiful. When I was driving here, the sky was like fiery red and then glowing on the water. I just got little peaks of it as I was driving. And then I could see like a sliver of a moon. I was like, oh my goodness, I would like to stop and take a picture, but I'm like, need to drive to Chris's house.
Don't worry, that'll happen again tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Gorgeous Pender day today. Right on. You have a pretty good day today so far?
Yeah, it's been good. Yeah, I was working today at Ptarmigan and it was a productive day. And then I went home, ate some chips and came here. So not bad.
Excellent. All right. Well, we're going to get into the ptarmigan stuff later on, which I'm really excited to talk about because I think there's a lot to talk about that. But before we get to that, the traditional first question, of course, is what brought you to Pender Island?
That's a good question. Well, I guess I came to Pender for the first time. I think it was in 2013. I guess, okay, I'll backtrack from there. Before that, earlier that year, I was playing a show in Calgary at the Ship and Anchor. It's a pub kind of south of downtown Calgary. And playing with my band. And, you know, it's a full house. And this random guy kind of came to the show and started talking to us. And he was in town on business. And he's like, oh, you guys are great. Like, he really liked the music. And he's like, you guys need to come to Pender. Like, where is Pender Island? Like, I've never heard of this place. And so he proceeded to tell us, like, it's so musical and you should, you know, come out. My daughter plays music and, you know, you could do a show together. And I'm like, okay, like, that sounds awesome. But like, cool. And, you know, sometimes those conversations happen and they don't go anywhere. Nothing happens. But that was Bob Cooper and his daughter Shanda. And so we ended up connecting with Shanda on Facebook and we worked a show into our next tour. And so came out here in the fall and played at the hall with her and Danny. And it was lovely. And I remember I must have been sleeping, I think, in the van on the ferry. And I remember pulling into Pender and we were staying in one of the cabins at Hope Bay Bible Camp. And Shanda was there and she met us and she just had her arms open and she's like, welcome to Pender. And I'm like stumbling out of the van. I'm just like so groggy. I'm like, where am I? Like, this is beautiful. And I just take a deep breath and she gives me this big hug. And I didn't even know her. This was my first time meeting her. And I'm like, there is something about this place. Like, I feel instantly relaxed. So it was, a magical first meeting. Good first impression. And then we played the show, had a lovely time, got to meet a few people in the community. And I remember thinking, and at this point I had been on the road for years, and every place I would go, I would kind of think, could I live here? Like, is this somewhere I could see myself settling down? And some places, there were certain things that I was like, yeah, I could make this work. And other places were like, absolutely not. So it's kind of always in the back of my mind. And I remember thinking at the show or just on that trip, everyone here could be my best friend. And it was just that thought had never popped into my head before, but it was kind of random. But I think it was just the level of community and familiarity that even though I didn't really know anyone, there was just this welcoming atmosphere that just made me feel like part of a family, I guess, and part of something really cool. And so from that point, we kept coming back to play shows or just spend some days off in the middle of a tour. And then we ended up recording a DVD out here, filming a couple songs live in different locations around the island. And it was on that trip that I was like, I think I want to settle down here. Like, I think I need to live here. But then I'm like, how could I ever live on a Gulf island? Like, that's crazy. But it just kind of was very like cemented into me that this was home. And then, less than a year later, I ended up moving from Calgary. So it was a bit of a process, but it just like really captured me in a way no other place has. But I think it was equal parts the place, but also the people here that really kind of drew me in.
Nice. I love the randomness of the interaction with Bob Cooper.
Yeah, totally.
Place in Calgary and talking about, you gotta talk to my daughter.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. He just wanted to check out some live music while he was in town on business and came to the pub and just started chatting. And that's just what he does. And it's great. And so I'm here because of him.
Wow. Okay. I didn't actually know that. This is totally news to me.
Yeah.
So it took a little while for you to wind up moving here. It took about a year, you said, more or less?
Yeah. Well, from my first time being here, I think that was in 2013. I moved in 2015.
Okay.
Yeah. So just under 2 years, I guess.
Okay. And so it's kind of a big deal to move anywhere new, right? And so how was the first year or two of the transition into moving to Pender?
It was really good. I think because I had been on the road so much and just around so much change constantly. So the changes from living in Calgary and then living on a small island on the West Coast, I didn't really notice the changes so much because I was ready for it and just happy to have roots down somewhere and just to feel a bit more settled and have a place, like a physical home. So it was so much relief. And then just getting plugged into the community was like really cool. And I hadn't had that like stable sense of community for a long time. And I do remember thinking like, just kind of building some relationships and getting, forging some deeper friendships and realizing, oh yeah, it takes work to foster these relationships. Instead of just hanging out with people one night and then in a different city the next night. When you see the same people over and over again, it takes a lot of intentionality and just commitment to each other to really build that and go deeper and have really like long lasting, strong friendships. So that kind of really struck me of just realizing, oh yeah, this takes work. Like it's not always easy to be in a small community with people, but it's so rewarding and such a beautiful thing to have those friendships and to develop that and to have people that you can be really vulnerable with and share in each other's like joys and sorrows and just like encourage each other in creative pursuits and celebrate each other. And all of that stuff is like so rewarding and so worth the effort that it takes to like maintain that and develop that. So that was one of the biggest things I noticed. But all of the like physical changes of just like the different landscape and the different weather, I remember it took me a long time to realize how to dress because I was so used to like, especially in the winters, like just used to Alberta winters where it's so cold, but it's a dry cold. So it's just a really different feel. And you just like put on a parka and you're good to go. But here there's this like it's not that cold, but it's damp. So it feels really cold. And then, I remember going for hiking up to Roe Lake with some friends, and I had my big woolly sweater on and like another sweater underneath and probably a long sleeve shirt. I'm like, it's so cold. I'm like bundled up. And then I started taking that like really steep part up to the lake, and I'm just like sweating because it's not really that cold. It's just the damp air feels kind of bone chilling. So I'm just like shedding layers, like, how do I do this? So it's kind of a funny thing, but took some adjustment to realize like how to dress in like damp West Coast weather and how to layer up, but all good things. Like it was such a positive transition. But yeah, the first 2 years were, I don't even remember, like a blur, but in such a good way of just like, I don't know. I just feel like I've always belonged here, I guess.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think that's such a beautiful and articulate description that you gave about the difference between just being in a community and what it takes to forge and move forward relationships and what's involved in that versus just having fleeting interactions. And I relate it to when I was doing a lot of traveling with my wife. And so it's really fun and exciting and adventurous to have all these new experiences taking place over and over again. But we were as well, too, really wondering, wow, how good would that feel to be around the same people all the time? But it comes with its challenges.
Totally. Yeah. And I remember just feeling a bit of that fragmented community where you see different people every night. And it's really cool to see that and to kind of get to especially, being in places that are outside of your comfort zone or outside your norm, like when you're traveling or, playing in clubs and you're up till 3 a.m, you interact with people that you would never interact with in your normal life. So you do get that element of just being exposed to just humanity. Some of it's like very, like raw moments. So that was a really unique thing about it. And I really loved that. And sometimes I miss having that in my life. But it is fragmented, and I remember just thinking like, I just, want stability and just to feel more grounded, because it was very just constantly on the go. So you don't get that kind of continuous, people who are walking with you through all of life's journeys. And that's a pretty neat thing to have. And not many communities have that, even people living in the suburbs or in cities. I think it's pretty rare to find a community like Pender where people really look out for each other and are really intentional with their relationships. So it's taught me a lot. Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's just take a step out of Pender and back into the past for a little bit, because you did mention about touring and staying up till 3 a.m. in the morning, Lauren. My goodness. Repeatedly?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, and so maybe if you could just lay out for us a little bit about your musical career that you have and experiences you've had in the past, and maybe we could start with the beginning of that and that how you transitioned from playing music, I guess, maybe as an amateur to becoming, let's say, professional?
Yeah.
Professional musician?
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. Is anyone ever a professional musician?
I guess so. It sounds good, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's kind of digging back into the archives. I grew up like taking piano lessons and playing classical piano, and got to a point, I think I got up to like grade 8, like in my training, but then I got so tired of it and I started to hate it. I think just because playing other people's songs and there wasn't room for my own creativity. And so I remember, I think I was about 14 and I quit piano. I'm like, I'm done. This is stupid. I'm, maybe a bit of that like early teenage rebellion. But then I stopped taking lessons, but then I realized that I still love to play. And that was like my creative expression. And so I took some jazz lessons for a while, just worked on my theory and kind of learned how to improvise a little bit, or just have more freedom in my playing, because it was mostly just centered around classical music up until then. And so kind of brought in a different skill set, and that just helped me. Yeah, it helps my writing. Around that time too, I've always written poems, and since I was younger, lots of like creative writing and journaling, just because I've always loved it. And so I think it was probably around when I was like 14, 15, 16, when I started kind of pairing little piano melodies with words that I had been writing, and just, I guess, the early stages of songwriting and figuring that out, and listening to lots of like Coldplay or like piano rock and just like learning the songs and learning like how they wrote their piano parts and like kind of modeling that. And that was big inspiration for me at that time. And yeah, just experimenting. And so lots of just time in my basement or in my parents' basement writing. And then it wasn't until I was a really shy kid, like growing up and in high school. And I never really felt confident, especially with music. There was, I remember there were a couple bands in my high school and they'd play different open mics and battle at the bands or whatever. And I never even considered that I could do something like that. Like performing was like, no way, that's terrifying. Like that, I could never put myself out there. Like I'm not good enough or whatever. I don't really remember all that was going through my mind, but it didn't really feel like an option. But, I had started playing on like a church youth group team, playing piano and then doing a bit of singing. And a few people there had kind of encouraged me like, hey, you should sing more. And I never thought I could sing, but I just tried it and I really liked it. And so that kind of gave me some confidence to perform and just to play in front of people and not to just like lose my mind and get all like sweaty and shaky and just kind of work through those jitters. And then I started thinking like, I really like this and I'm writing, like, I want to be able to play my own shows. Like, why can't I do that? And, so I played my first concert and I think it was 2008. So I was like 19 and it was a friend of mine who promoted shows in Calgary. He was having a house concert and so he asked me to play. And so I had my like electric keyboard and like my notebook with all my songs because I still to this day like often forget lyrics. And so if it's a new song, like I need a reference. So I had my notebook and I was like so nervous. And there's just like a bunch of my friends came and we're all just like in this living room. So it was a really relaxed atmosphere, but still, everyone's just like looking at you. And I remember I had my notebook on my piano and then it fell and I'm just like, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm doing. But I played a couple songs and people really loved it. And my friends were super supportive and I had a lot of fun. And so I remember talking to my friend John and I'm like, I just want to play. I just want more opportunities to try this. And you put on shows. So like, if you ever need someone to open, I'd love to, and he was like, okay. And so he promoted a lot of local hardcore shows.
Okay.
So it'd be like community centers with these, 4 hardcore bands, pack the house and just like thrashing music, people like throwing down and that whole scene. And so he'd often call me and say, hey, Lauren, I've got this show. Do you want to open? And I always said yes. And so I would open the show and play my piano and play these like cute folk pop songs. And everyone seemed to like it, especially like all the girlfriends and moms who were there with their, hardcore boyfriends or sons. And it was a very inclusive community too. Just a bit of that like alternative music community where it's like very supportive and, everyone's just getting their start. And a few of the bands that would regularly play, would do some touring. And so there's kind of this like expansion, people kind of getting out of Calgary and doing bigger things. So it was really cool. It was a really dynamic community. And so often I would just, do that and open for all these bands and then play at like some coffee houses and stuff and just do that. So I did that for a couple years, after high school while I was doing university, which I did 2 years of, and then was also working part-time and then decided, I really love this music thing. I should take the opportunity to try and focus on that now. School will always be there. So I did a lot of like weighed all the pros and cons and decided, okay, I'm going to take a break from school, focus on music and see where that goes. And I haven't been back to school since then. So my break turned into just dropping out, I guess. Okay. I am a successful university dropout. But and then I didn't end up, doing music full time for, maybe 2 more years. But But it gave me lots of opportunity to, while I was working, and then just playing local shows and connecting with different local musicians and stuff. And I really had no idea what I was doing, but I was just trying stuff. And I decided to book a tour in 2009 because U2 was playing in Vancouver. And I thought, well, hey, I want to go to the show. So I'll just like book some shows to get out there, and then I can go to the show and kind of cover some costs or whatever, have a good time.
Whoa, bold.
Yeah, very bold. I had no idea what I was doing. So I kind of gave myself like a 2-week time period. I had never booked a show before and didn't realize how many emails you need to send to promoters or venue owners, and how many emails or how many responses you don't get back. You send out lots of emails and then just no one responds, and you just have to keep emailing them or calling them. And then they might respond and be like, oh, no, sorry, we've booked, we're booked on that day or whatever. It's like such a tough task to do. But I was able to book 6 shows over a 2-week period. Not maybe the most economic way of doing it, but I was pretty proud of myself for just making it happen.
Yeah, for sure.
So I went out with 2 of my friends, a cellist and a bass player, and just played these shows and didn't make any money, probably lost money. Didn't keep track of it, so I have no idea. Had no idea what I was doing. But it was fun. I did it, and then went to see U2 and saw some friends in Vancouver and drove home. Yeah. And then 2 years later, started kind of touring full time, met my first husband, and he had experience in the music industry. And so was able to kind of take that side of it, the business side of it, and booked a tour and kind of made that happen. So then we just went for it. And so toured for, a couple years pretty much full time. But yeah, it's been like quite a journey, and it's taken it took a long time for me to realize, oh, this is actually like a career. Like I'm not just experimenting or just doing things and seeing how it goes. It's like, okay, I'm starting to make some intentional decisions with this and being very intentional about how I do it. And so it's been a neat journey because I never expected it. I never expected to do music or have that be, a career that I pursue. Or just a big part of my life, but I love it so much. And now I don't know what I would do if I wasn't playing music. It's like, I need to do that.
Wow. Well, okay, so many different places we could go here.
Totally.
Yeah, well, okay, the first thing I just want to pick up on is that you mentioned that you toured pretty much full time for 2 years.
Well, was it? So we started in 2011. No, it was more than that till about 2015. So like 4 years.
Okay. So what did that look like? With North America, are we talking about?
Yeah. Or? It started with a 65-day cross Canada tour, which was like 3 or 4 months long, from here to the East Coast, just playing in like every small town ever, which was pretty cool. Like Canada has a lot of small towns that are, have little cafes and cool people. And so, I did that. And then from there, drove down to Florida to work with a producer to do my first studio album. So we did the first tour and was like, we'll just see how this goes. And then, we need to get to Florida to record. It was a producer who had worked, and was in a band that I really liked. So that's why we ended up going down there. But and then from there, just kept booking tours, and they just kind of went from one to the next. Maybe have like, some time off in between, a couple weeks to a month or so. And then back on the road. So it was a very transient lifestyle. Kind of had all my stuff in storage and bought a 15-passenger van, and that became home. And then would bring different people with us, kind of whoever was available. And my band was called the Lauren Mann and the Fairly Odd Folk, and which is really fun. And the Fairly Odd Folk kind of encapsulated the idea of, it's always a bunch of different people. So, one time I had a banjo player and a cellist on tour, a brother and sister.
Okay.
And they came on tour. They opened the shows, and then they played with me as well. And then another husband and wife duo who played guitar and various instruments, percussion and stuff. And then more of a full band with like drums, bass, electric guitar. And then we kind of kept doing more of like a full band thing. But yeah, I toured across Canada, and then we did a lot of touring in the States. So we would do kind of loops of America as well, which was really neat. I had never done a lot of traveling in the States, but there are a lot of cities and a lot of interstates. There's a lot of places you can go to and so many interesting things to see too. So that was really neat. It all kind of blended together after a certain point, and it's hard to remember like, oh, this happened on this specific tour because they're just, it's a blur of like 4 years of just constantly living in the van and being in a different city every night.
So when you say living in the van, were you guys actually sleeping in the van from time to time, or?
We did occasionally. Yeah. We put a bed in the van, so we could sleep out there. But often we'd stay with friends or family or just people that we would meet or different host homes and stuff. It was always different, but often with people. We didn't stay in a ton of hotels, tried to keep it pretty economical. And we met a lot of interesting people that way too.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, which was cool. It taught me a lot about, learning to accept hospitality from people, and realizing that a lot of folks want to host bands, or just like host people and offer, their place for people to sleep, but they just need that opportunity, or just, it's like okay to ask for that too. Like, hey, we have nowhere to stay. Does anyone want to like let us crash at their place? And often, someone would be really excited about that. And so it was humbling too, to kind of always be in that state. But it taught me a lot. And now it's so nice to be able to give back too, to have a place where I can say to anyone or like, friends who are passing through or travelers or whatever, like, hey, I have a place, like, come stay with me. Yeah. So it was challenging in a lot of ways. It was a lot of fun and lots of like neat experiences, getting to see different parts of the world. I mean, there's so many stories, like staying with some friends in one of the like poorest parts of Philadelphia. They just lived in like this community called Kensington, and it's a pretty like so urban, like so, lots of crime and stuff, but also such a cool community. And I got a glimpse of like people really looking out for each other, even though there's like drug dealers on the front stoop, but they're still people, and they were really nice and probably made sure that our van didn't get broken into. So, it's just like interesting, like just being out of my comfort zone and in places that I never would have put myself, but I just ended up in places and yeah, lots of late nights. So, loading out gear at, 2:30, 3 a.m. in a back alley somewhere, and you just meet random people. It's really interesting. So
wow.
Yeah.
Seriously, wow. Like something I also want to find out a few more details about, and I know you said that it all kind of blends together a bit, which makes perfect sense. But for people who have never gone on tour themselves, which I'm assuming the majority of the audience have not, what does that kind of look like with a little more detail as to sound check and
like a day in the life?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, a typical tour day would be, waking up probably fairly early. I think our average drive time was like 5.5 hours. Some of those were longer, some were shorter, but that was maybe on average. So maybe you'd kind of work the day backwards. So if the show was at 7:00, we'd have to be done sound check by 6 at the latest, so we could have time to eat. And so we're sound checking at 3, loading in at 2, depending on the show, if there are other bands. So then it's like, okay, if we have to be there at 2 and we have a 5-hour drive time, leave it like 8:30, 9:00. And so kind of planning around that, we'd wake up 7:30, 8:00, have breakfast wherever we are, hang out with whoever's house we're in and spend some time with them, and then make sure, wrangle all the bandmates, make sure everyone has remembered their toiletries and their phone chargers and all the things that often get left behind. Any laundry, don't leave it in the laundry machine. Get everyone in the van, hit the road, make sure everyone's gone to the bathroom after, drinking coffee in the morning. You don't want to get like 45 minutes down the highway and someone has to pee. It's like flurry in the morning, and then you're just sitting in the van for most of the day. So I did a lot of knitting. because I could keep my hands busy, but still like look out the window and, watch the scenery go by. So I would do lots of knitting, some journaling, trying to keep myself productive as we drove, because that was really my time during the day when, if I was home, I would be just at home, doing stuff or whatever, probably doing dishes or normal home things. So that was kind of my time during the day. So I'd try and be productive. And yeah, we'd stop, and get gas, maybe get some food somewhere, but we were usually on a pretty tight schedule. So we couldn't stop and see things too much unless it was like an attraction right off the highway. So like one time driving through Louisiana, we saw a sign for holding baby alligators. We thought, well, this is great. We should check that out. And it was free.
Yeah.
So it was like right off the highway. It was like an alligator conservation society. And so they would rescue baby alligators, I guess, that would get abandoned or something, and rehabilitate them and put them back in the wild. And so we got to hold a baby alligator, and it was okay because it hadn't had meat yet. So it wouldn't think to like bite your finger or try and eat you.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. And it was so soft. Like the top of it is like scaly and like it's a reptile, but their bellies were like the softest thing ever. It was amazing.
Wow.
It felt so nice to hold. Who would have thought?
Don't worry about how big was a baby alligator.
Like maybe, a couple feet from like tail to nose.
Okay.
Yeah, like pretty small.
Did they make cute little cooing noises at all, or?
No, but
No?
their eyes would kind of like, they blink and they have these like, alligator eyes. They're kind of like, reptile-ish and look kind of weird and these like cute little smiles.
That's adorable.
So cool.
The side note, last time I was in Louisiana, I actually ate some alligator and it was delicious.
Wow.
Yeah. But if next time I'm going to hold a baby alligator instead of eating one, I'll probably never eat alligator again after that experience. But for those who've never tried alligator, give it a shot. It's pretty good.
I think I have tried alligator before too, and it was quite good. So
maybe it was just the Louisiana spices that helped it out. But anyway,
sure.
so not a lot of time to stop at attractions unless they were right off the highway.
Totally. Yeah. So, and sometimes we would see really cool things right off the highway, like a nice view or something like that. But yeah, then we'd get to the venue and, go in, kind of touch base with the promoter or whoever was our contact there. And then it would just be like, now we're working. So we're loading in. Most of the time we had a trailer with us. And all the gear was in the trailer. So we'd start unloading or just firing equipment into the venue and then setting up. And that would usually go right into sound checking. So it's pretty nonstop. And then someone in the band would be trying to like take photos and do social media and, do the internet connection thing. And then hopefully we would be able to sound check, coordinate with the other bands and still have time to like get some food and eat. And so that was, sometimes we would have extra time before the shows, either when we got to the city or before the show started, between soundcheck and the show. And so I would often try and go for walks just through the neighborhood to get a feel of like where I was.
Yeah.
And I always looked for like vintage stores or thrift stores to do some treasure hunting. And that was really fun. So as soon as I'd get to a city, I'd say, try and like look up on Google where the nearest thrift store is and then walk there if I could. And it just like gave me an opportunity to like we'll get a little bit of exercise after sitting all day and then just like have a bit of time to myself to like think and I love exploring places and just getting a feel for a place too. And it's funny, you can go to different parts of a city and get such different feels for it too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I remember going to San Antonio, and I think the first time we were there, I had some time, maybe an hour or two. It was great. And we were really close to the San Antonio River Walk, which I didn't even know about. I just like started walking. I'm like, oh, there's some stairs and like a walkway by the river. That's cool. Like, I'll just see where this goes. And it's like this amazing, waterway that's surrounded by like little shops and restaurants and, bridges that go over it. And it's just like a really cool, you don't feel like you're in Texas. It's very unique. So I just wandered all through there and did some writing and just had like a great time. Went back to the show, felt really refreshed. And then the next time I was in San Antonio, we were playing across from like a strip club, and it was just like this kind of seedy part of town with like just lined with bars and is like maybe a Saturday night or something. So it's just like lots of intoxicated people everywhere. And I'm like, oh, this is, not somewhere where I feel the most comfortable. So totally different vibe, same city. But it was always interesting to just kind of explore the cities and try and get a little bit of a vibe for the place. And then, we'd play the show. Often there would be other bands playing. And so it was nice to connect with them too and hear different music. And then after we would play, it'd be like going straight to the merch table, trying to hustle CDs and connect with the crowd, get them to sign up for the email list so we could stay connected and just like build those connections and relationships. And and then pack up and load out and then go to wherever we were staying. Usually it was a late night, get a little bit of sleep and repeat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. That's really amazing to hear the in-depth description of what's been going on in your life before moving to Pender Island.
Yeah, I feel really far removed from it these days, but it was my norm for so long. And so it's funny to kind of recount those days and just how intense they were, how busy.
It sounds so intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
And so, because when you talked about taking those walks, they sound pretty peaceful, just checking things out and being curious and everything. But before getting ready in the morning, driving, making sure day after day you have to get to somewhere new. You're driving on roads you probably haven't been on before. You're going to a place you've never been to before. And there's just so many things are new and happening. Do you feel as if that there was a heightened level of maybe not necessarily anxiety, but or adrenaline going like on a minor level all day? Or
yeah, for sure. And it took me a couple years to actually realize that. Every so often I'd get sick, get a cold or something. And then performing while sick is just the worst. And I remember finishing a tour once. I had a really bad cough and, went to we were home for a bit and I went to the doctor and, my heart rate was really high. And it turns out I had a thyroid issue that had gone undiagnosed for a couple months. So it was quite severe. And I was able to get the right medication and like monitor it and just like totally normalize. But I think a lot of that was triggered by stress. And I just started to realize it then that the constant movement, and just being in a different place every day and kind of going from, I don't know, you're sitting in the van all day, but then as soon as you get to the show, it's like go, go, go. And you don't stop until late in the night. And then you're up again early the next day. And so I think my stress and anxiety level was just at a constant high or at least higher than it would normally be. So, and that was just normal. But that it wears on you after a while. And it just took me a long time to realize that because you just get used to it. You're like, this is just the flow. We're just in it. We're going and, and you just keep going with it. But then, it caught up to me and I just started to feel that even after I got diagnosed with that and I was able to, manage that and my body kind of went back to normal, but I started to feel the burnout, and it hit pretty hard and it lasted for a while. And it took me a while to realize that and to figure out what I needed to do about that. And that was part of moving to Pender too, was just realizing I have nothing left. I am so depleted emotionally and physically, in every way. And I haven't had that community that, when you get to those times, you kind of rely on those people around you to help, support you. And so I was just totally empty and realizing I need to be grounded again. I need to be rooted somewhere so I can be okay. So I can function and get back to who I am. So it was so fun and so many different experiences and getting to play music. And I learned a lot and learned how to interact with crowds and, how to talk between songs. Cause that was always something that's hard for me, and just gaining so much confidence just with the sheer volume of shows that we played. But the cost of that was, lots of anxiety and high stress. And then realizing okay, coming out of that, it's been quite a long healing process of just, even living on Pender and recovering, I guess, in a sense from that, and realizing, okay, I still love playing music and playing shows and connecting with people in that way. and that aspect, all the good parts of the travel that, you know, seeing new places, being out of my comfort zone. But how do I do that sustainably where I don't just burn out or just like totally disconnect from myself? A lot of like my thought over the past couple of years is, what does that look like going forward? Is that still something I can do? And yeah, because that was definitely a huge thing and a big side effect of just, you know, maybe that's not true for all bands touring because everyone does it differently. But that was, for me, it got to be quite difficult, even though it was super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, this is amazing. Thank you for sharing all that. Seriously, that's I knew none of this before right now. So this is really blowing my mind, actually. You know, I'll just relate a quick story here, is that because the only experience I have with being up on stage is just doing a fringe show, a couple fringe shows. And so the obligation I had was, okay, you got to go do 6 shows and 6 nights and in the same venue, same city. And I couldn't believe the pressure to go up and do that.
Yeah.
And after that experience, when I would go watch a band play, I would think, okay, so this band actually had to drive here from a long distance. They've never been to the city before.
Right.
Maybe they have or whatever. It's all new. And so, you know, I was trying to put it in perspective as to what the experience was for touring musicians, just having a little bit of an insight as to what it's like to have to go up and perform for people, because the expectations are pretty high, right?
Yeah, totally.
People are, I paid money for this.
Yeah.
I expect you to be good, right? And that my expectations have lessened now because of that, because I feel as if I have more understanding and empathy. And if the band doesn't seem that good that night, oh well, you know, I just had an off night and
totally.
They might be a little tired.
Yeah, true. And if, you know, it's one thing too that I kind of got used to and got in the habit of, but it's like, however I'm feeling during the day, like to a point, you kind of have to just put that aside and be like, all right, put on a smile. Like, we're having a good time.
Sure.
And so it does create a bit of this like illusion too. And after doing that so long, sometimes it becomes easier, which can be kind of a scary thing. Cause it's like, I don't want to lose my authenticity. Like, and I would find myself sometimes going into autopilot where I'd, you know, say the same thing, you know, to a crowd. I'm like, oh my goodness, I am not present. Like, I know myself and I know I'm not fully there. So I'd have to kind of check myself and be like, okay, I just need to get in the zone. But it was harder if I like wasn't feeling well, or if you know, there were some like difficult band dynamics during the day, or if we just had like a really long day. And then, you know, we've all got to get on stage and play and put smiles on and be energetic and engage the crowd. And it takes a lot of like mental stamina to do that. But there's a lot that goes into it for sure.
No doubt. Maybe we'll just get back into Pender after this last question, and because you're just talking about how you're going to deal with possibly doing more touring in the future. But I know that you went on a tour this spring across Canada. And how did that go for you? It
was so good. Yeah, it was really... I was a little nervous about it because I hadn't done a big tour like that for a couple years. And so I felt some apprehension, like, okay, I've done this before and I know what it could be, and I just want it to go well. And it was such a positive experience. I mean, we had a great kickoff show on Pender, which was such a wonderful way to kind of get sent out. Just feeling so supported by the community here. And we had such a fun time. And so the rest of the shows, like, they weren't big shows. Some of them were quite small, but it felt really manageable. Like we had a lot of fun together. I mean, the interpersonal dynamics were great. My band was awesome, and musically and personally, we just got along really well. So it just created this like really fun atmosphere. It was some of their first times traveling across Canada. So we stopped at every province sign.
Oh, yeah.
So that was just like a fun thing we did. We'd get a picture and like, you know, put the camera on the roof of the van and then like run up and like, you know, try and do a self-timer. And so we just had some fun things like that. And we had a couple days. It was quite busy. Like we had, I think, 2 days off or something like that in the string of shows. So it was pretty constant, but it was also a lot shorter than pretty much every other tour I've done. It was 3 weeks. I think we did 17 shows, and then had a couple days off at the end. And so it was okay to kind of pack those days, because it was like, it wasn't 4 months long or 3 months long. It was just 3 weeks. So it was busy and some early nights and long drives, but I don't know, it felt like more sustainable. I mean, maybe not necessarily financially, but that's okay. Like, you know, we pretty much broke even, and that's all you can really expect. Like, it wasn't a big tour. We didn't do a lot of publicity. So it was more, for me, it was like, can I do this still?
Really?
Yeah. And I mean, it was also a way for me to see a lot of people that I hadn't seen for a couple of years. You know, I mentioned like that fragmented community. It was still my community. And so going back to visit some friends and see people I hadn't seen, it was like, oh yeah, you guys were like, you were my community when I was out on the road and doing this, you know, more full time. And so it's still neat to have those connections and go back and get to visit with old friends. And so that was really, really special. It was definitely a highlight for me. And just remembering like, yeah, getting to play and then like see how music connects with people. And that felt really fresh, I think, because I hadn't been, you know, I'd taken a couple years off of playing shows in a more serious sense. And so just getting to see that again and seeing random people come to a show and then like really connect with a song or with the music in general, and then getting to talk to them after. And like, this is what it's all about. It's music is that like common ground. It's that language that like transcends so many cultural barriers or just, you know, social divisions and stuff. And it's a way we can all just relate on like a human level. So yeah, being reminded of that was really neat. And I got back, I didn't get sick at all, which was great. Yeah. I got back and just felt like, oh, like I could have kept going, but also it was like, it ended at the right time. I had 2 days off in Montreal before I flew home, and I got to, just like wander Montreal, which is such an amazing city, and just eat a lot of food and see some friends and just experience, you know, old Montreal, and just really enjoy it. So it just felt like full of like life and vitality, and such a positive experience. It was so much fun.
Cool.
Yeah. Very
right on.
Redemptive in a way, I guess.
Sure. It sounds like it. Definitely.
Totally.
And so when you came back off that tour, that you came back to the job that you have now working for Ptarmigan Arts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we should get into that a little bit, because I think it's really interesting what has been going on there and what's been happening through Ptarmigan to help the community. So maybe if you want to start off by just talking a little bit about maybe how you got the job first off, and then how it's been since you've been there. Yeah,
it's such, I feel like I won the like job lottery, but it was neat. Like the timing just worked out really well. Krista, who's the previous artistic director, decided to move back to Saskatoon with her family. And right around that time, I was, you know, I had been working a few different part-time jobs on the island, which was great. And I had done that for a couple years, and allowed me to meet some people and just try different things and do that along with, you know, doing music. But it got to a point where I realized, okay, I need something a bit more solid, just to give me some like the financial stability and something to like sink my teeth into. And the jobs that I had been doing were great, but they weren't the most like challenging in the terms of just like challenging me to, you know, just grow and develop skills and just expand myself. And I like being challenged. I like trying new things and kind of being pushed a little bit. So the timing was really perfect, because I was getting to a point where I'm like, okay, I need something. Am I going to have to go back on tour just to make money, which is not the reason I'd want to do that? Or am I going to, you know, what am I going to do? And then the job opened up. And at first, it's funny, I remember thinking like, oh, I can't do that. Like, I'm not ready to settle down for like a job, like for an arts organization. Like, that's too serious. But then I was like, what am I thinking? This is like the perfect job. So I put my name in the hat for the position, and had to do a CV and a cover letter, and I hadn't had to do that for a long time, and then got it, which was so a little bit surprising, but really exciting and nerve-wracking, all of the emotions all at once. And yeah, it's been really cool in a lot of ways. It has been challenging in such a positive sense of just helping me grow in different areas and giving me opportunities to work with so many different facilitators and artists on the island, and not just in music. And that was kind of, the creative background I came from, but getting to learn more about film with our film festival and working with David and Nona, and being immersed in that world, which I knew nothing about beforehand. And then getting to work with more of the visual artists and do, the fall crawl and the art in the orchard. And that's kind of a new thing for Ptarmigan as well, to incorporate more visual arts under our umbrella. So that's been really neat. It's been very inspiring. And on a personal level, I guess I realized how there is kind of a weight to working for yourself. And there's a pressure for that. You're kind of always, every month I'd be like, okay, what am I going to do this month to help me make the money that I need to make to cover my expenses? And that had been kind of my life for a number of years, of just kind of relying on my art and my music to have an income, or at least part of an income. And so when I got this job, I realized, wow, I don't have to rely on my music anymore. I can do this as a hobby, or just part-time, or whatever I want. There's no pressure. And so it totally alleviated that pressure from me, which I hadn't really realized it was there. It was once I didn't have it anymore, I was like, oh, this is so freeing. And it's kind of revitalized my desire to want to write and just enjoy music. And I think helped me kind of discover my love of it again, which was really neat. I wasn't expecting that. That was a total surprise. So it just, I felt a lot more inspired by that, and getting to do, for my day job, getting to do creative work and use kind of, I am quite administratively minded. So being able to do, the administrative work and data management, or just whatever menial tasks that are part of the job, I really enjoy that. So it's such a good fit. And of course, getting to work with Lisa was super fun. It is super fun. She's such a wonderful coworker and an amazing, strong force of the organization. So learning from her and getting to work alongside her has been really cool and very challenging. Just helping me grow and work on my interpersonal skills and just how to navigate situations, and being okay with reaching out to random people, sending cold emails to be like, hey, we've got this idea. What do you think? And just getting to, a lot of my job is just brainstorming or hearing other people's ideas for, hey, we should do this program, or how can we make this work?
And actually, just to catch people up a little bit with this, so for people who are not in the know about exactly what Ptarmigan is or how it works, maybe just to fill in a few of the details here to how the organization got started, and specifically what it is that you guys do on the island. Right.
So Ptarmigan Arts is a community arts organization. And traditionally it focused on performing arts, music, dance, and musical theater. But we have also kind of incorporated recently the visual arts into that fold as well. And so our mandate is to make the arts accessible to everyone in the community by providing creative opportunities for artists and events and workshops and classes for the community to explore the arts and to find their creative voice, kind of with the mission of cultivating creative community, because we believe that a creative community is a healthy community. And so that's kind of the force behind, or the driving force behind what we do. So we do a couple events throughout the year. We do the film festival, a youth talent show, Art in the Orchard. Last year we did our first Mosaic Arts and Culture Festival, and the fall crawl, and then a few other things. And then throughout the year we do workshops. So maybe a music theory class, or right now we've got Down by the Bay happening, which is a preschool music and dance program that happens on Saturday mornings. Yeah, everything from guitar workshops to improv classes. A lot of it depends on what facilitators are on the island and who can teach things. But we have some amazingly talented people here, which is great. So we've got a good, robust program. We also do stuff with working with other local organizations. So Mary Rare is a music therapist, and she does a Singing for Fun, Singing for Joy program, which is just helping people break down the barriers that they might have in regards to singing. And it's this amazing program where people can just come and learn songs and sing in a group and in a really like safe environment to just find their voice and realize that everyone can in fact sing, even if some music teacher when you were 5 told you that you were tone deaf. That can be a really damaging thing. So helping people work through that. And yeah, so arts and wellness and all sorts of things. We're kind of open to lots of ideas to just foster the arts on the island and give opportunities for artists to teach and share their knowledge, and then for people to get to glean that and do workshops and activities and stuff. So
amazing. And you guys are generally able to do this by securing grants that you've applied for, and then
we are grant dependent in a large way, but lots of different project grants from different places, different sources. But we are opening up a gallery coming up very soon, which is really exciting. And for many reasons, we're excited to give a space for visual artists to showcase their art, and also to hopefully build it to a place where it helps support some of our charitable programs. Some of our programs we make revenue, from tickets or from registrations. But we do some programs that are purely charitable just because we believe they're really important for the community to bring that quality of life to people. So so we're hoping that eventually the gallery will kind of help feed those programs and be a social enterprise for us. And a gathering place and a really cool spot in the community.
And so this is in the old Red Tree Gallery.
It is, yeah. So we're moving our offices into the back space. And the front will be a gallery showcasing Pender art.
Oh, you guys are moving your office.
Yeah. Super exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Big changes, but it's neat to see the organization expanding a bit and going into some new territory. And we brought Shannon Brayford onto the team to kind of spearhead opening the gallery and kind of the project manager for that. So it's super exciting.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say a big thank you because what I've noticed going on the island, what Ptarmigan's been doing, especially in the last year, and maybe I'm just noticing more because I signed up to the Facebook group and I see what's coming through there. But it just is really amazing the amount of different programs that you guys are helping to bring out and facilitate and give people an opportunity to share their knowledge and their experience and give more people an opportunity to learn and create.
Yeah, totally. It's so rewarding to be able to provide that. And it's amazing to see even what Lisa and I can do just as part-time staff, but there's still lots going on. So it is pretty cool to sometimes, we get in the thick of it, and Lisa does all the grant writing and is like, always has deadlines, and, I'm working on programs, and then sometimes we have to take a step back and see, oh yeah, there is a lot going on and lots of opportunities for people. And even, just seeing young kids who, go to the Down by the Bay program, get exposed to some music and dance foundations, and then go into the school. And Ben McConkey's in the school teaching music now, and, getting to just kind of bring up the next generation of musicians and artists. And so helping foster that is so rewarding. And just seeing interactions multi-generationally and all of it. It's really cool and such fulfilling work. So I'm so grateful to have that position, and just get to work with so many amazing people. It's really a team effort. Like there's so many people involved who help make it happen. And it's a lot of fun.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Nice. And one of the things you helped make this happen was you guys helped to sponsor this podcast.
Yeah.
The first year of doing the podcast, I was doing it all on my own, and people were like, you got to go talk to Ptarmigan. You got to go talk to Ptarmigan. I was like, I don't know if I want to, right? They're going to take control of things. They're going to tell me what to do. And I went to go talk to you guys, and you're able to provide a little bit of financial support to help for equipment and some time. And all you said was just keep doing what you're doing, Chris. And so thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And that's one of those things that's so fun because we, don't always know what cool projects people are up to. And so when someone comes to us is like, hey, I'm doing this. Is there any way you can help? It's like, oh, well, yeah, we would love to get involved. Like, let's see, it depends on, what we have going on and what resources we might have to offer. But yeah, I'm so glad that you did come to talk to us because we were able to help in some way. And it's just so fun to kind of hear of all these different things that are happening because Pender has so many creative minds and creative people on the island just coming up with ideas and wanting to do really cool things. And so it's really neat to just help those projects happen because it just adds to the culture and atmosphere of the island. So I always welcome more ideas.
Good to hear it.
Yeah, totally.
Nice. Well, I'm so happy we're able to document that, not just for the present day, but for the future as well, too. Because, you know, I'm thinking of this as a project that hopefully people will be listening to years in the future. And it's a wonderful thing to document what's going on the island right now. To segue into, you know, the next traditional question, to go from how you and other people at Ptarmigan are helping people on the island, I'd like to ask the second traditional question. And who has helped you on Pender Island, Lauren?
That's an endless list. Who hasn't helped me? It's been pretty cool being in this community and being able to like help other people, but then be helped too is a pretty amazing thing. And I think the first thing that comes to mind is just my neighbors. Having awesome neighbors is such a cool thing. And I know a lot of my neighbors. When I first moved to my house, there was a family down the street who was moving away and they were selling their place. And I forget how we got connected, but they said, well, you know, we don't want to bring all this stuff with us. We've got like, you know, do you need a garbage bin? And I'm like, oh, I hadn't thought of a garbage bin. I guess I need that. I have a house now. And like a wheelbarrow and I'm pretty sure a step ladder. Like all these things that, you know, it'd have to go out and get because they're very useful items.
Yes.
And so that was like very helpful. I use that wheelbarrow all the time. They also had a woodshed full of wood and they're like, well, do you want this? I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, well, yes. Thank you. Like, do you want something? But they ended up, giving us all their wood. So we had wood for the winter, which was amazing. So funny story, we moved in and then shortly after went back to Alberta to record an album and did a couple shows. And I was playing at this showcase in Spruce Grove in Edmonton and was chatting with one of the stagehands and she's like, oh, you're from Pender. I'm moving to Pender. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. She's like, what part of the island are you on? I'm like, oh, North Pender. She's like, oh, we started talking about like what street. And I'm like, oh, I'm on Cutlass Court. And she's like, I'm moving to Cutlass Court.
No way.
Like, no way. I'm like, oh, you must be moving to the house. And she's like, you're the person who got all the wood. She's like, I wanted to keep that wood. I'm like, oh, sorry. But we're good friends. So it all worked out.
Small world.
Totally.
Small world.
Yeah. But the generosity of Pender folk and, you know, I have great neighbors and often like, you know, wander down to someone's house. I'm like, hey, the other day I was getting a piano delivered to my garden and needed to cut the fence to get the piano in the fence and needed to find, you know, wire cutters wouldn't do it. So I needed like bolt cutters. And my neighbor down the street, Ralph, who kind of affectionately known as my Pender dad, after going to a couple neighbors' houses who were directly around me, no one was home. I ran down to Ralph's. I'm like, do you have a bolt cutter? And he had one in his workshop. So used that, got the piano in the yard. And, you know, there's always neighbors around who have other tools that I don't have. So it's a very, it's a good community of sharing resources and ingredients. I have many stories about that.
Right on. So neighbors are like some of the key people that have helped you out on the island for sure. Yeah, neighbors for sure. And just like with, friendships that I have been able to build. And it's cool. You know, I was saying earlier just how realizing that building those deep friendships takes a lot of like some work and some intentionality and, you know, making sure that you're staying connected to each other. And I totally have seen so many rewards of that, like having some really low moments and some of my hardest moments in life on Pender and just seeing how my friends have, you know, it's hard to ask for help sometimes. Absolutely.
But getting to a point where I'm like, I need help. Like I just need the support of the people around me and those people coming alongside me and like offering just advice or bringing soup if I'm sick, or just those things like being cared for. And having a community around that's really like family. Like it kind of goes beyond just being friends. It's like it does feel a lot like family. And that's so meaningful because I know, then when I'm doing well and they need help, like I'm there to help as well. It's so reciprocal. But yeah, my friends have been pretty huge for that. Just supporting me when I've really needed it the most, and sometimes don't want to ask for help, but just absolutely need it. And yeah, it's a really beautiful thing to know that you're cared for and looked after.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's really a beautiful way of describing the supportiveness that you're experiencing on the island. Yeah, it's a lovely place. It's a lovely place we live.
It is.
I actually just wanted to ask about where things are going with your music in the very near future, because I know that a new album is probably going to be in the works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so maybe if you want to talk about that for a little bit.
Totally. Yeah. Well, I've been writing for a couple of years, just, spending time in my studio working on songs, not really sure what I'm doing with them. And then kind of got to a point where I realized, okay, I have a lot of songs and I could probably pick the best ones and that could be an album, but not really sure how to record an album. It takes money and resources and, or just how to make that happen logistically. Yeah, but it has been kind of coming together. And part of it too is I just haven't had a vision for it of like what I want it to look like. And I didn't really want to take any concrete steps towards something until I had a bit of a vision. And the tour in May was great for that because I was just in the world of music and we were playing some new songs on the tour. And so it gave me a chance to just think about, okay, what do I want with these songs? Like, what's the story? What's the feeling? What's kind of the theme behind it? What do I want to share with people? And it kind of gave me some time to think about my vision and hone that in a little bit. So that was really, really great. And so since then, I've been kind of mulling it over and trying to figure out what's next. I had a moment a few weeks ago where a little mini crisis where I was just kind of feeling a little bit down and I'm like, I don't know what my vision is. Like, where am I going with music? Is this something I'm even doing anymore? Like, what does it all look like? And just trying to sort out all these thoughts and trying to figure out, okay, where are these coming from? Like, what are my goals? And actually just writing out, like, what do I want to achieve from this? And do I even want to record another album? And then realizing, oh my goodness, yes, I do. Like, I have these songs and I think I need to share them with people. And so I decided kind of out of that little crisis, making, setting some goals and just doing a lot of thinking and processing and realizing, okay, I need to set aside a day that, a day a week, as much as I can to just work on music, whether that be like the business side of things or writing or recording demos. And so I decided, I have Fridays off, so I'm going to aim for Fridays to be my music day. And so I remember writing it in my day planner on that, the first Friday when I decided this. I'm like, music day, do not plan anything. I needed to just have it there. So when I looked at Friday, I'm like, oh, right, I can't plan anything. That's music day. And it was great. I set aside the day, in the morning, I did some business things, emailed a few people about some shows, did some kind of planning and ideas. And then in the afternoon, I wrote and just played music and it felt so inspiring. And then from that, I had so many ideas and it gets all the gears turning. And I'm like, oh, this is great. I need to do this more often. So I've been trying to incorporate more regular, focused time into my weeks where I'm really dedicating myself to that. Cause it's, that's my craft and it's my art. And I don't want to, just take it for granted. Like, I really want to be working on it and always progressing and, especially working towards something. And so, yeah, I've got songs. I have kind of put them in a list of sort of the top songs that I feel like would be good for an album. And I've been talking to my friend in Calgary who co-produced my last album. And we've done some writing together and we work really well together. So I'm excited to kind of bring him into the process. And I'm going to Calgary next week. So we're going to work on just kind of go through the songs and make a bit of a plan and get the process going. to hopefully actually record and see it come to life. And I have like quite a specific vision for how I want the album to look or sound, and even for like album art and the title. And it's all in my head. So now it's just like finding the right people to help make that happen. But it's really exciting. I feel like I am moving forward with that after a couple years of just transition and just kind of figuring out, okay, how do I want to do this? Like going forward, what does music look like? And yeah, where do I see myself going? And I don't have the answers to a lot of those questions.
Which is so exciting because it's the unknown.
Totally. Yeah. Anything is possible.
No.
But I just have to start working towards something. Yeah. We'll see what happens.
Nice. Yeah. We talked a little bit about this last week, and I totally caught your excitement when you were saying that it's a whole new adventure. That you said in previous times you didn't have any ideas for album art before going into it, but now it's percolating, and you have a title. Yeah, often that's been the last thing that comes. Like I'll have songs and then, record them in the studio, and then it's like, oh, I need like a track listing, I need some art, and I need a name for the album. But I already have a lot of those ideas, and they will probably change and ebb and flow, but just going into it with a clear vision is really exciting, because now I can just build the team around it to help make it happen, and just see it come to life, which I'm really excited for. Nice. And when you go back to Calgary, I'm sure you'll be seeing your parents.
Yeah.
And will you not be doing any longboarding?
I unfortunately don't have a longboard anymore.
Okay.
So that will not happen. I think that was like a really treasured time in my life that will stay perhaps in that time of life when I was, 19.
Fair enough. It hurts when you fall on pavement.
It does. I had some doozy wipeouts.
But when you were a youngster and you used to do some longboarding in the streets of Calgary?
Yeah. It was kind of I was not a very rebellious child. I guess the extent of my rebellion was staying out late, longboarding, and talking with my friends. Like I didn't really drink. I didn't smoke. Like I didn't do drugs. It's like very, very tame teenager, but I liked staying out late and hanging out with my friends. And we would often longboard through the city. There was this park called Prince's Island Park in Calgary, just north of downtown, with lots of pathways and trails. And so we'd go all through there. And yeah, we had a bit of a crew. It was great.
Nice. Nice. Well, actually, I just want to ask about your parents for a little bit here, because your parents are part of the stories that brought you here. Mm-hmm. And I always like to ask people about the parents a little bit, but maybe if you could just describe a little bit about your mom and dad for us.
Yeah, they were both awesome. And I'm really close with them both, which I'm super grateful for. My mom is a medical transcriptionist. She works at home, and it's funny, when she first started coming, like after I moved to Pender and she came out to visit, everyone who we would, like a lot of my friends who we would see, kept saying that we have the same smile and the same laugh. And I had never thought about that in all of my life. No one had ever said that until got to Pender. And I guess people know me well and saw us together. Like, you guys are you have the same smile and you laugh the same. And so I've realized how I do like take after my mom in a number of ways, which is a great thing. She's a great woman. But yeah, she's wonderful. She loves going for walks. We do when we hang out, we go for a lot of walks, and yeah, she's very sweet. And, what else it's not often a question you get asked to describe your parents, but she's also like really encouraging, and that's been something that's been really great, just, going through life and going through some difficult moments. And she's just always has an encouraging word for me. So that's, I know I can always go to her with like a problem or something, and she'll just be like, it's going to be like, you're going to be fine. Like you will get through this, and just really like make me feel like it's going to be okay. Nice. So that's really nice.
What is your mom's first name?
Patty.
Yeah. Okay.
And my dad, his name's David. He's a pilot, corporate pilot. He's been doing that my whole life. And in his spare time, he goes motorbiking, like on off-road biking. He's currently living in Texas, for work for a couple years. And, I think I get my sense of adventure from him. He's always doing something outdoorsy. In the recent years, it's been motorbiking. but always like, yeah, wanting to explore new places and meet people. And so I think I get that from him. But yeah, I'm the oldest and the only girl. And so I've always been a bit of been my daddy's girl, I guess. We're pretty close, but I'm close with both of my parents. But yeah, my dad's super fun. He's really goofy and, has great dad jokes, but is also just a very like sincere person and really like looks at people, like makes eye contact when he's talking with them, is very like intentional about that. And always taught me a lot about, honesty and just respecting other people. Yeah. So he's a great guy.
Fantastic. So you're the oldest and you have a few brothers underneath him?
3 younger brothers.
3 younger brothers. Well, let's name them off.
Elliot, Connor, and Drew.
Okay.
Yeah, they're great. I love them.
Right on. So you're the big sis.
Yeah.
Okay. Big sis Lauren.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I think we're going to start to wind it down a little bit here, but, something that just popped into my mind was I was thinking about that first show that you played on Pender Island. And so if I'm remembering correctly, this was at the Hope Bay Bible Camp.
The show was at the hall.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. So the show that you guys played at the Bible camp
that was after that.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it was maybe the summer after, something like that, or early fall or something.
Yeah. I think it was in the spring or summertime that I saw that because I was at that show.
Right.
Yeah. And I remember being there and we just heard that there was a band coming through and we thought we'd check it out. And it was such a nice venue.
Yeah, it was really cool. I remember because we played like on the deck of the chapel building and cool kind of stage area. And then looking, everyone's kind of on the grass, kind of festival style. It was really cool. And then I just remember seeing all the trees like on the other side of Houston Road and all the arbutus and the sun was getting low and I'm just like playing music and looking out over all these people and the trees. And I was like, this is perfect. It was just one of those moments that I will always remember that playing music outside is always such a great experience. But that moment was like, this is really special.
Yeah. I remember you expressed that to the audience and that actually stuck with me. I remember the, authenticity that came out in that moment from you. And it was like, yeah, she is really digging this right now because this is amazing. My goodness. How come this doesn't happen here more often?
Yeah, totally.
But actually, so maybe we'll just end off with one more question for you here. And the question is that just the last word for you. Anything else that you want to say to the people of Pender and the current times and beyond? Any last words that you want to pass along?
Last words. Well, I don't know. You always want to make last words so meaningful, but
no pressure.
Yeah, too much pressure.
No, you can ramble away till you find the last words. It's totally fine. I don't want to put you too on the spot here.
No, it's cool. Out of like I've learned so many things, especially since moving to Pender and just being in a community. And I think one thing that has just really stuck with me is just how much we need each other, and we're just like. I think we're just made for community. Like we're made to live with each other in families, but also like in friends and just like in the space where we're sharing and we're in relationship with each other. And I don't know, the current like climate of the world seems like it's in a lot of ways getting away from that. And there's a lot of individualism and capitalism and the hustle and bustle and even just a lot of like racism and hate and disrespect for each other. And I think, I try and remember to, it's always constantly trying to remind myself to not just be open and inclusive, but to like take steps towards that. And that's something I've been challenging myself with lately is, I think of myself as like a really open person. And, I love hearing other people's perspectives on life and just meeting people of different walks of life, but actually being actively taking steps to include people and to reach out to people and, not just like standing by, and to, actively love, I guess, is something that has been challenging me. And so that would be, I guess, my final word and challenge to the people of the world listening to this is like, how can we like actively take part in building community and, among our close friends, but outside of those circles as well, and see what cool things and what cool connections happen with that.
Yeah, that's really great. I just heard recently twice in the same week reference to the idea that if you want to get love, then just give love.
That's so simple, but such a simple reminder.
It's such an obvious equation, right?
Totally.
That if it's something that you're seeking in your life, that it's very free and easy to give,
Mm-hmm.
and that you'll be somebody that other people will want to be around and to reciprocate that and to just heighten the level of love that exists between
Totally.
yourself and other people. And
Yeah. So simple and sometimes so difficult.
Well, it takes vulnerability
Yeah,
to
it does. Yeah.
do that. But I think that we live in a situation where that it's a very safe place
Mm-hmm.
we live in. And just taking some active steps to be the change we want to see in the world.
Exactly. Yeah.
Lauren, thank you so much. I'm so happy we got to do this.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
For sure. I asked you about a year ago,
Yeah.
and it's come together now. But I'm really grateful that you came in and wanted to share stories from your life, and it happens every time I do one of these with people. I'm so blown away to hear more in depth about people's lives, and I think you were able to express and articulate in such an amazing way. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been so much fun.
All right. Well, I'd really like to thank Lauren for doing that interview. And to honor that interview, I decided to come down to Masthead Trail. So Masthead Trail is located on the North Island, and it starts at a road called Masthead Crescent. And it starts off kind of flat and then starts a steep descent down towards Shingle Bay. So the area alongside of the trail is covered with cedar and a ton of maple trees, which I happen to be leaning up against one right now near the bottom of the trail after making my way down and looking at Shingle Bay and starting my way back up. So yeah, I'm just underneath this maple tree right now and looking around and admiring the amazing features that this trail has to provide. And for some reason, I just couldn't help shake the feeling that there was some sort of a connection with this place and Lauren, and I was really eager to discover what that might be, and I'm still not clear, but I think it has something to do with the fact that there's a particular energy that exists here that resonates with Lauren's energy, and it might have something to do with the abundance of maple trees here. So once again, thank you to Lauren for doing that wonderful interview. And before I sign off, I'm going to let you guys know that I am working on a new project right now, and that is doing private recordings for people to preserve their life stories. So if you've ever wanted to record your story, or you have someone in your life, a parent or a grandparent, and you'd like to have their stories recorded, this could be for you. What I'm able to provide through this service is a lot of pre-interview conversation to help hash out the kind of stories that you'd like to tell and try to really work through the important aspects of your life that you'd like to have put down for future generations to hear. And once we've spent time working through that, then it'll be in-home recordings. So I will come to you and record in the comfort of your own home and do as many recordings as is necessary. These recordings can be an hour or 2, 5 or 10, whatever you'd like. And then once the recordings are finished, I'd go into the editing room and work away at creating a crisp, clear, coherent, and very fluid final recording to make you sound your best. So if this sounds of interest to you, then you can email me at myaudiomemoir@outlook.com. So I've included that email in the show notes. But to spell that out for you, that's myaudiomemoir@outlook.com. So if you have any interest in that and you have more questions at all, please feel free to contact me and I can tell you more about it. But that's it for that, and that's it for this episode. So thank you to Ptarmigan for helping to sponsor this. Thank you to Ben McConkey for providing the theme music for the show. Thank you to this maple tree for allowing me to lean against it while I'm recording this. And thank you for listening. Until next time.